Hello and welcome to How to Draw Frank from Scratch. We have a tutorial here on how I draw my main character of my my book Furious Frank and How He Copes, designed to teach young children, young adults how to cope with anger and basically ways to calm down that are approved by the National Autistic Society, the National Health Service and ADHD UK. So to start off, we get the pencil. We draw a lovely little circle. He's basically made up of circles. We've got one for the head, one for the big nose, and one for his eye. And then a big loop for his fin, and then another half a circle for his other eye, just hidden in the background. And you've got a big oval for his body, just general shapes coming out here. If you're doing it for your own characters and your own things, this is just general shapes. And get a tail. Again, doesn't matter what position the tail goes in. You know, he's a chameleon. They have long, curly, weird, unusual tails. It can go anywhere. I'm choosing this time to have him sat on a branch. So one leg kind of curved round, the other leg stretched out. I might put his hands resting on his legs once I've done the branch. You'll notice that I do a lot of my images where the branch has no leaves on it. That's because I'm useless at drawing a plethora of leaves. Probably going to need a weird and wonderful brush that adds leaves for me, but I like the look of it like this. Right, hands on legs, hands on lap. And now, the general outline of the image, once we've circled around the eye, is done. So now we look at thickening an outline. A lot of the time I do this on paper for the original bit and then take a picture and scan it in, but I'm getting used to Adobe Fresco a little bit more now, so I can change the way that I do these things and change the methods that I use. Okay, so thick line, 25 pixels, should be good for me. I'm kind of arguing with myself over the thickness of these lines, but I like it quite thick because it adds a bit to the cuteness. And then we'll add his eye going around. Again, I've toyed with the idea of having it a full circle as it goes round, but I prefer the way it looks when it's kind of like this and the bits are filled in with colour. Go around his big fin, or all the way down. Let's try all the way down. No, that's not. 2-finger tap on the screen for an iPad. We'll basically undo and you can try again. One of the benefits of doing it on an iPad, I suppose, because I can't do that in real life. Outline around his legs. Obviously taking care as to which body parts would be closer than others, so it doesn't look really odd perspective-wise. His little hand, which is obviously behind most of his body. His other hand, and a little arm leading up. This is with an iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil on Adobe Fresco. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I write and draw with my paper at a right angle from myself. This kind of means that sometimes I'll have lost the perspective of, I'm trying to do this for people to watch, and he'll be like he is now, side onto the screen, because I can only apologise, that's just the way I draw, and it's really difficult for me to straighten the page for permanently. Little branch, and a little offshoot. You don't need to stick to your lines, because I didn't really like the way that branch looked when I drew it in pencil, but it wasn't really important at the time. Even that, it's curved out a little bit more than it normally would, but it's not. Oh, that's the problem. Sometimes when you're trying to turn the paper, you just draw a line and you have to undo it. Okay, a thinner line, because it just looks a bit odd if you do everything in the same thickness, especially the bits that require a bit more detail or a bit more, needs to be a bit more subtle. This is a lovely trick where you just do a few circles and then hold on, and it comes to a perfect circle that you can then resize and change about. Let's colour in the pupils. As jet black is perfect. Well, looking now, it's not actually jet black, is it? It's actually a bit lighter. Oh well. So it'll be. Oh, nostrils. I always forget nostrils. Always. They always have to be added at the end. Quite surprised that I've not done this time. And a little line going around the back this time before we have a general look at it and move on to colour. So, new layer, same brush, but new thickness and new colour. Green, 62, why not? I'll just colour him in. I've seen a few videos that folks are like, oh, how to do this bit, and it basically revolves around using the paint bucket to fill in solid lines or different varieties of how to colour things in, which is quicker and easier. Now, I don't know about you, but I draw basically because it calms me down and I enjoy doing it. So I like to get as authentic a way of doing it as possible. And if I'm using pen and paper, I don't use a paint bucket. So I like to colour in by rubbing the pencil against the screen. And yes, I fully appreciate some of you will be sat there going, it's not authentic, you're on a digital screen. I know. But this is as close as it gets where I can undo things, redo things, and move layers around. And if I fancy it, animate afterwards, which is one of my other videos. If you look at my channel, you'll see a video about how to animate Frank. I believe it's an eye blinking, really simple, really straightforward from beginning to end, just so anyone can follow it. But this is just about the basic drawing of Frank. I need a lot of practice on backgrounds. It tends to just be a solid colour at the moment, but for now, it's not important. There is a lot of chopping and changing thicknesses just because, I mean, if I try and colour these with a thick pen, it'll just go straight outside the lines. Okay, so there we go. Basic Frank. Oh no, his fin. I need to do his fin. A new layer on the top because I need it to go over the green of his skin. I want it to be similar to that colour, so if you hold your finger on the actual colour you're trying to get near to, it'll take it to that colour and then you can just pick something that's near to it. I want it to be nice. I want it to be based on that shade, but a lot lighter, which is what we've got now. A bit smaller, so I don't go too far over the green. And then that little bit down the side. And his eyes, because his eyes are obviously not green. They're a bit more white. Nice, nice and thick. I'll go over an outline. Carefully, so I don't go outside the lines. Yeah, there we go. And spiral around until all the green's gone. And then do his other eye. There we go. And then we move on to shading. Is it shading? Yep. New layer. I like to go new layer, jet black, and then I'll basically draw where the shading is because it makes it dead obvious thicker than that though. Makes it dead obvious what I'm doing, whether I've gone outside of lines that I don't want to go outside of. And then I'll change the opacity afterwards to kind of make it blend in a bit more. You'll see later. Under his chin. Under his eyes. Anywhere where you think, right, so if the light is coming from above him, he's probably not going to hit that very well. I'll do that thinner later. So everywhere that would be underneath a part of his body. So you're looking at the soles of his feet and around his legs and his bum, underneath his arms. No, his tail will probably hide a bit of light. It's not perfect, but I'm not doing a realistic image of a chameleon because I couldn't if I tried. It's a cartoon of a chameleon. So if you get too in depth into what is perfect and what isn't perfect, then you're never going to finish anything. Just do it to a point where you're looking at it going, I really like that. And I like Frank. I think he is a great character. He's very versatile. I can do whatever I want with him. He changes colours depending on how he feels. Obviously, the ideal is to keep him green. But as you'll see in the book, Furious Frank and How He Copes, plenty of occasions where he goes bright red because he is fuming. Okay, and around there, because the fin will be casting a shadow on his head. And the whole fin's behind him, so that's going to be dark. Okay, now if we go a bit thinner on the pen. I can do some under his arm, his hand, and just touch up a few little extra bits that might need a little bit of a finesse touch. Before we move on to highlights. So change the opacity shortly down to, say 15, should we say 15? 15. Gets it green, and it changes the colours depending on the fin, the eye, wherever it is. Just makes it a bit easier for me to keep track of what I'm doing and how I am. And then we'll move on to the white for highlights, doing the same thing, a new layer, bright white highlights over where the sun's going to be hitting him. And then we'll take the opacity down, it'll be over his fin, that's why it's casting a shadow. Over his hands, his belly, his leg. And just little touches, like I said, it doesn't have to be realistic. It's all about a bit of fun. Because like I said, I don't do this for my full-time job, there's no pressure on me, anything like that. It's literally just a bit of fun. Yeah, I make the books, I release the books for people to help some people as they're going through a variety of things, particularly this one for anger issues. But it's no pressure on me. I've got a full-time job. I'm bringing in the money that I need to bring in. It's no pressure. So that turns the art of drawing these books and illustrating these books into just a bit of fun. Something that's nice and calming for me. It helps me relax. It helps me focus on things. It helps me get away from what my full-time job is so that I can... Oh, I don't like that line. There we go. So I can just ease myself out of daily life by drawing a chameleon. Shading some wood. These are all brushes that are default to Adobe Fresco. I do have some other brushes, but quite frankly, I don't see anything wrong with the default ones because of what I want to draw. If I was drawing some more artsy things, if I was doing more realistic things, if I was blending things in more, then yeah, there's a variety of brushes that might be a bit more suitable. But even the likes of Procreate has a massive amount of brushes that you can buy and all sorts, but Fresco has exactly what I need it to have. Let's do a few lines to add some grain to the wood. Again, because it's a 2-finger touch to undo sometimes, as you just saw then, I accidentally hit it. Then if you add a 3-finger touch, just the tips of 3 of your fingers, it will redo. Unfortunately, half the time I undo and then accidentally touch the screen, and then when I redo, it doesn't do anything because I've gone past it. Change the opacity down 10, because it's not necessarily a shadow for most of it, it's just grain. And let's add some highlights. Again, I can only apologise for the fact that half the time it's at a 90-degree angle to you. It's just the way I draw. And write, to be fair. Let's add some bright spots. Let's do a line here. Should I do a circle? Nope, don't like it. Single lines only. Mentioned a few times, Furious Frank and how he copes. How to calm yourself, how to deal with anger issues, how to deal with anger flare-ups, meltdowns. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all sorts of shops like that, particularly online, online bookstores, or via my own website if you're in the UK, on authorferk.co.uk. Down a bit. We're really low for this one because it is just minor highlights. 8. Yeah, that'll do. And then pretty quickly we just move to a background. I'm just going to go plain blue for this one because this isn't a background tutorial because I need to look at those rather than do them. So you never know, I might have a look, see what I can do, come back to you with how I did mine, and you can have a look. Blue background, and there he is, Furious Frank. Well, no, normal Frank.